Hello everyone and welcome to episode 19. I'm Gabe, and today our starter Pokemon will be evolving for the last time. But here's a quick recap. In the last episode, you challenged Beth, the fighting type head researcher, and barely managed to win. Coming out of the battle, it seems that some of your Pokemon are ready to evolve. We've got quite a few to get through, so let's actually start with our Route 1 flying type. Yes, little Asdazkite is going to get quite large, and if a pterosaur is going to be getting big, well, we better use an Azdarkid as the inspiration. More specifically, this will be based on Quatzelkey. The most fun thing about the overall shape is that Azdarkids had just ridiculously large heads and necks, to the point where you're like, hey, paleontologists, are you really certain that this thing could fly? So yes, our design gets a great big old noggin. Because of this, the silhouette on its own could pretty easily read as though it were a much smaller or even like a baby Pokemon. But a couple of things can be done to help counteract this. One, small eyes. Just making the eyes smaller really helps with the overall scale of the creature. I've ranted about this before, and that there are some designs like Dragonair that just don't follow this guideline particularly well, but we will be using that here. And two, just the level of complexity. Generally, the smaller the Pokemon, the less detail it has in its design. So, we don't want to go overboard, but I'm going to incorporate a good number of elements. As far as the pose goes, we're going to be going from Asdazkite's flying pose to this grounded one as a reference to real Azdarkids being incredibly effective hunters on the ground. Oh, and lastly, we are continuing with the Benjamin Franklin key and the kite experiment by giving this design's tail a couple ridges that make it look like a key. Colors are just a slight update on the earlier stages of the line. Oh, and I usually don't bring it up, but this is one of the Pokemon names that I'm really happy with. It just works really well on a bunch of levels. Alright, this is Quatzelkey, the lightning Pokemon. This massive flying Pokemon seeks out thunderstorms to collect lightning with its long tail. It is able to tame storms or unleash lightning whenever it pleases. Remarkably, it is just as agile on the ground as it is in the skies, and its ability stays Lightning Rod. So that makes it draw in those moves and get boosted because of it. You're pretty pumped to have this massive flying type on your team, but let's see how your starters are doing. First up is the water type. Sliscale is evolving, and everybody was pretty certain what was coming. Yes, Spinosaur's time. But to be precise, this is based on the more accurate modern reconstructions of the Spinosaurus. So that means it gets that big paddle tail, the little jog in its sail, shorter limbs, and of course, referenced by this Pokemon's primary typing, it was a very successful predator in the water. Now, all of these starters are getting a secondary typing in their final form, and a few of you actually guessed that our big Spino would be gaining the dragon typing. It's actually pretty easy to justify the dragon typing on almost any dinosaur design, but this one felt particularly appropriate. Now, of course, because this is a Pokemon, I did end up exaggerating the proportions a bit, which gave us these large arms and claws. Oh, and for the overall pose, I did want those hands to be on the ground, just to reference that the real Spinosaurus probably could have run short stints in a bipedal stance, but that in general they more likely lazily moved on land in a partially quadrupedal stance. I knew the colors right away, but getting the place took a little bit of juggling. And here is Spinosar, the sail Pokemon. This incredibly territorial Pokemon tears through anyone who gets too close with its massive claws. Spinosar are able to move through the water with ease, but are fairly clumsy on land. They are very difficult to tame, but will form an unbreakable bond with any trainer determined enough to befriend them. Because of this, Spinosar should always be approached respectfully. Its ability is aggression, so that boosts its dark type attacks and essentially gives it another stab. And it's a real meanie. If you picked Grumpy Little Sailil at the beginning, be sure to let me know what you think of the final design down in the comments. Next up, let's take a look at the grass line. Yes, it's Cactolage's turn to grow up. I wanted this line to stay pretty adorable through and through, so this was mostly about balancing the complexity of an Ankylosaur with a relatively clean and cute design. Also, I know that I just made a big deal about Spinosar's pose, accurately reflecting the Spinosaurus's actual stance, but we're going to be a lot more loose with this starter. It's just that getting it up on its hind legs allows for a much more friendly posture and allows me to pose the hands with a bit more personality. I actually don't think anyone guessed its secondary typing, but the barbs on our cactus along with this armor-like plating are going to give this final evolution the steel type, which is particularly fun as the cactus theming allows me to create a really good and thematic signature ability. Past that, it was just tweaking the design to land on just the right amount of detail. I mean, I think it would feel a lot more busy if it weren't for the cute and chill personality that comes through still. The colors were, relatively straightforward, though I did waffle a bit and almost switched the shiny and base colors. I like them both a lot. But here is Ankylotus, the flowering Pokemon. This gentle Pokemon keeps predators at bay with its armor plating and massive steel thorns. Ankylotus still enjoy hiding in plain sight by hunkering down and holding their large tails in the air to appear like a desert cactus. They enjoy having their bellies rubbed, but sometimes need help getting off their backs afterward. Its ability, something I'm calling Desert Adapted, and that basically makes it immune to fire type attacks. This grass type has become a real tank, especially after losing that fire weakness. But if you chose cute little Cactomo at the beginning, be sure to let me know what you think of this friendly behemoth. But let's go ahead and take a look at the last starter. Everyone knew that we were going to get a raptor, and here we are. And I know that a couple of you are particularly fond of the featherless raptors seen in the Jurassic series, but we are going to be going with something a little bit more scientifically accurate. If you do like your raptors naked, I will have a good surprise for you later in the series, but for now, get ready for some feathers. A bit of ornamentation on the head does quickly give away its new secondary typing. Our raptor is going to be so speedy that it's gaining the electric type. I've been wanting another fire electric type for a really long time, and this felt like a great fit. You may also see that I did tweak the placement of the raptor's iconic sickle claw. Just to mix things up, I decided to put it on the hand instead. Again, if you like the classic Jurassic Raptor, you'll get that foot claw later in the series. Now, with all the feathers and whatnot, it took me a lot of time to get things to kind of flow together nicely. The tail in particular was rough. I wanted to work in some lightning bolt imagery while still preserving the gradual fan of feathers that most dromaeosaurs likely had at the end of their tails. Colors, also a little tricky with all the details, but we ended up with something pretty awesome, and the shiny is also just as cool. Alright, here is Flightour, the quick claw Pokemon. The extreme speeds that this Pokemon reaches allows it not only to generate intense heat, but also massive stores of electrical charge. Flightour are incredibly intelligent and know when to either flee from a battle and quickly run and attack from behind. They attack with sharp sickle claws on their winged arms, but are also quite dexterous and have been observed opening doors. Its ability is something new, Plasma Burst, and that means if it's ever hit by a fire or electric type attack, that boosts both its attack and special attack. And here's our speedy little glass cannon. You'll have to let me know if you picked Fleetwee what you think of its final evolution, but I'm really happy with all three of these. They feel cohesive, and they still represent that initial theming of the fight, flight, or freeze survival instincts. Oh, and I'm excited because in the next episode, we'll get to see some variants for the starters. Yes, we're actually going to do new forms within the same region that they're introduced. Yeah, it's very cool. I think you'll enjoy them. But back to the gym. You just beat Beth, the fighting type head researcher, and she steps up and congratulates you.
Nice work. I was certain I was going to beat you, but you really pulled through. You're proving to be a great Pokemon trainer. Congratulations on evolving your Pokemon. I want to give you a couple things. Take this Pokeride signal. This will allow you to smash through any damaged obstacles. And secondly, it's my pleasure to add another access code to your ID badge.
Oh, another Pokeride signal. And there is, of course, sure to be a spot where you can use that coming up quickly. You thank Beth and decide to head north and stop into Salur City again. Your new access code lets you purchase additional items at the Evolution Research Building. You pick up some odds and ends, but your frack tip seems particularly interested in the black belt item you just bought. You give it to your feisty little rock type, and it happily evolves. Yes, we are not done. There is one more evolution to take care of. Our sharp and irregular rock type Fractip is going to be turning into the obligatory humanoid feminine waifumon of the Palean region. This design wasn't originally going to be like this. In fact, one day I will share with you the beta design for this Pokemon. It is so bad. It was probably the worst initial design that I did. So I scrapped it completely, and as I was thinking about the redesign, I realized, yes, we don't have anything that fills the waifumon trope, and I took this on as a challenge. The easy first step is just figuring out a feminine silhouette that works, and these sharp legs and hips pretty much do that job on their own. Because of the stone tool theming of the line, and the fact that I didn't want our waifumon to be a sweet pushover, our design is going to get some literally killer obsidian blade arms. Thematically, Little Fractip is taking the Black Belt evolution item and using it to bind together its sharp fragments. So that also lets me pull in some ninja-like wrapped elements. Oh, and hair. I wasn't sure how I would get believable flowing hair from a rock type, but the wrapped fabric worked itself into a ponytail surprisingly well. It took some fussing, but we ended up with a dark and edgy color palette. Get it? Edgy because of the... Alright, here is Pledjeair, the Blade Pokemon. This Pokemon has overcome its brittle stone body by reinforcing it with tightly wrapped bandages. They are quite agile and can run circles around most other rock-type Pokemon. Pledjeair have honed their arms into blades sharp enough to cut through solid steel with ease. And its ability remains sharp armor, so that means that when it's hit, defense drops, attack goes way up. It's pretty formidable, if I do say so myself. Oh, and I'm also glad that I finally got the fighting type into the line that's, based on weapons. But there were a lot of evolutions for one episode, so you'll have to let me know down in the comments which of these designs is your favorite. In fact, with all these new Pokemon added to your Pokedex, you will now be able to travel back and help Mal at the abandoned laboratory. You do a little bit of backtracking and leave Ordo Outpost through the gates to the east and walk into the jungles of Route 9. But we will pick up from there in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching, and please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts on today's episode down in the comments below. And another big thank you to Beth for being our awesome fighting type head researcher. I'll see you all in episode 20. Bye.